Hello, my name is Allie, and I want to talk to you about zines. Where I live, nobody seems to have heard of zines, and that's nothing new. Nobody seems to have caught on to zines at all, even though it's a thing that's been happening since like the 30s, but whatever. Where I live, I love my hometown. I was born here, I was raised here, I love living here, but the sense of community that other people feel, they tend to feel overshared things that I don't share with them. For example, a big thing in my community that my community shares is a love of college football. Everybody is very passionate about football here, and I could not care less about college football if you paid me. So the way that I am able to have any kind of community for a lot of the things that I'm into is by finding communities online. And that's been true since I was about 13, when I first started listening to the Smashing Pumpkins and got really into alternative music in the mid-90s. Nobody in my hometown had heard of any of the music that I was interested in, even though it was on MTV all the time. I don't know. It seemed like in the 90s, it took 2 years for anything to get here. So I have always looked for communities online that I could share things with, because it just doesn't really exist for me in my hometown. Even when my hometown had like a small but fierce punk scene, I don't remember seeing a lot of zines. The first zine I ever saw, a friend of mine put it in my hands and then kind of like anxiously ran away, like she was embarrassed. And it was like your typical punk rock cut and paste zine. And I'd never seen a zine, but I knew that I understood what a zine was because my mother worked at a church, and it was the 80s and the early 90s, and so they would just take a clip art book and photocopy it and cut it out and paste it together, and that's how they made the church bulletin every month. So I had learned the cut and paste and Xerox method from my mom, but didn't know that people were doing that to create their own little books and put out these, messages that they really needed to express. So, even though it wasn't something that I saw around in a zine community like what you might see in a larger city, when she gave it to me, I still understood what it was and how she had made it, and that it was really special. And part of knowing that it was special was that she was embarrassed to give it to me. I recently have been looking for that zine, and I can't find it anywhere. And I don't throw stuff away, so I'm kind of anxious about what might have happened to it. But I'm starting to think about other things as well that are missing. And I just imagine that they're all in the same kind of liminal space swirling around together. But I really wish I could find it. In the process of looking for it, though, I've found all this other stuff that I made like 10 years ago. Old sketchbooks and collages and artist trading cards, or ATCs, that never ended up going to anybody because it was just harder back then to get any eyeballs on what we were doing. Now with Instagram, it's so much easier. And then in 2014, I decided to sit down and just challenge myself to make a zine in a day. So I did. I made this. It's the Zine in a Day zine. And it is just your one-pager. And it tells the story of a mermaid who fell in love with a star. And I didn't have time to really think about or plan what was going to happen on it. I just drew a mermaid on the front because why not? And then I just started telling the story of the mermaid. So it really evolved as I was doing it. And the original flat for it is actually on our fridge. It's been on our fridge since I made this in 2014, and my husband says it's one of the best things that I've ever made, and he's really proud of it, and I'm really proud of it. So a lot of the zines that I got, for a long time I just bought them on Etsy. I didn't really have any other way to get zines, and so stuff like this, just Worm Moon by Pity Party Studios. Let's see, the Prince zine, which, like, I got this in 2014, and it was the second print, and I'm pretty sure they've made other prints of this since Prince's death. It was probably really, really popular once Prince passed. By the way, I think about Prince every day. And that was by Antiquated Future. You can find them at antiquatedfuture.com. But it was on Etsy. I definitely bought that on Etsy. And then also these zine packs by Jolie Ruin, which, as far as I'm concerned, she's like an OG zinester. And these I bought because I did not have any examples of Riot Girl zines, and I needed them because I decided to start a zine club at the high school where I teach. I feel like getting my students excited about it will be a way to keep myself involved in it and maybe create a little community of people. Sorry, you hear my dog? Come here. Oh, this is Peanut. Hi. Hello. You're my baby. Yeah, I wanted to create that community for them in the hopes that once they leave our high school, they'll go on and keep making zines. So I needed examples of different kinds of zines to give my students so that they could kind of have a reference point, but also it was like a really good excuse for me to get zines. And since then, I've been getting more and more comfortable about putting my own zines out there and saying, hey, let's trade. I'm still working through that. I'm still really intimidated by zinesters who have been doing this since a really long time ago, and saying to them like, hey, do you want to trade for my Carly Rae Jepsen fanzine? By the way, this is my Carly Rae Jepsen fanzine because I felt like I needed to make something to show my students as well, and I wanted it to be something that I really love and care about, but that was also wholesome. And what's more wholesome than Carly Rae Jepsen? So it's more like your classic cut up. Which song are you? And I talk about like the awkwardness of figuring out that you love Carly Rae Jepsen. And I have a Mad Libs for Call Me Maybe in it, and some photo collages and stuff. And this was my second zine. So I went from this little one-pager to this. I think when you make a little one-pager like this, people tend to go like, oh, yeah, one-pager, good effort. But I actually really love working in smaller mediums. I like the planning that's required in order to make sure everything fits. And I also like that you have the option to not plan like I did when I made this one, and just kind of do it as you go. I tend to get really excited and jazzed about things and then not follow through with them. So something like this is perfect for me because it pushes me past that perfectionist paralysis that keeps me from finishing things a lot of the time. And so that's kind of my go-to for zines. I made another one recently with my zine club. I don't have it with me. Like, it's at work. Pretty much everything in my collection is at work except for like a few things like that I knew that I had a bajillion of. I just pulled like 5 or 6 out and took it with me. My tripod is at work. You are currently sitting on top of an vintage Samsonite train case that belonged to my great aunt, on top of a journal, on top of another journal, on top of a board game in order for me to make this video. But it's just this kind of thing of like, I have to ride the wave of excitement and get it done at the time that I'm inspired to do it, or I will not do it. And I will feel crappy about it for months because it was like the thing that I was going to do that I never did. So I had to make it work today. So yeah, I'm really excited about zines. I want to become more of a member of the community and not just somebody who like buys zines on Etsy and then never says anything about them, or makes zines and just has like 12 of them but never gives them to anybody. I don't want to be that kind of person. And this is really the first time that I've felt like everything, it hasn't already been done yet, and I actually have something that I could offer. There have been other creative communities that I've tried to get into before and had a really hard time with it because there were already so many people involved and everybody was kind of already filling all of the niches, and I couldn't find my own niche. So I feel like this is something that it's so personal and unique that I feel like I have something to contribute in a way that I've never really felt while doing anything creative before. So yeah, thank you for listening, and I hope that this has been interesting. But I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep doing this. So thank you very much for watching, and my hope is that I will put a video out every week. I want to talk to some people whose zines I have and ask them if it's okay if I review their zine on here. I'm imagining that the answer is going to be yes, because we all love each other, so like why wouldn't the answer be yes? But just in case, I want to like put the feelers out and make sure it's okay. But for today, I just kind of wanted to introduce myself and kind of give you an idea of what I'll be talking about in the future. So thank you so much for listening, and until next week, keep making, do it yourself.